All right, so we're joined from the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, by my man Larry Swayne, founder of Wingzza and now Wingzza Mambo Sauce. We thank you so much for joining us. We've got a room full here with us at Belma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for taking some time for us.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, Greg.
All right, so super cool. Now, before we get into what all it is you do, you're originally from the DMV,
Mhm.
went to Morgan State University there in Baltimore, great HBCU,
Mhm.
before you got to Charlotte. So just tell us a little bit about your educational background and kind of your HBCU experience, because we have several HBCUs here in Mississippi. We like to let everybody know what actually HBCUs have to offer.
Sure, sure. So I grew up in Maryland, just outside of DC, and I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore. My major at Morgan State was marketing. I actually ended up at Morgan State because I was in the band in high school.
Oh, cool.
So I got a band scholarship playing the alto saxophone, and that's what really got me into the college space and, thinking about HBCUs because being in my marching band in high school, it was like, the HBCUs are the pros of marching bands, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got a scholarship to go to Morgan State. I auditioned for them, and I landed on campus. They gave me the most money. I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. I had applied and got accepted to Hampton, Howard, North Carolina A&T,
Wow.
Bethune-Cookman down in Florida. But Morgan State gave me the best scholarship and opportunity, and it wasn't too far from home. So that's where I ended up. So I went. My degree is in marketing. I went to school for marketing. That's what I majored in the Earl Graves School of Business. And I just can't say enough about my experience at an HBCU. There's a certain level, especially for Black students, of nurturing that takes place on a college campus. That's the first time you're away from your parents. You're kind of living on your own, making your own choices about what you wear when you do your laundry, your food, the whole thing. And I always tell people HBCU is like a family. So it's like an extended family where, they understand the student population. They understand what we are going to be facing as we get out into the corporate world, and they try to prepare us for it as best as they can with love. They don't make it easy for us in any way, but they try to set it up so that, we are challenged, but we are also loved and nurtured into a way that when we're sent out into the world to make a living for ourselves, we are ready.
Yeah, and I think it's important also, and I know me and you're about the same age, but especially in the last 10, 15 years, the diversity of HBCUs has never been greater
Yeah.
because we're an all black community. And I hear kids all the time say, well, I don't want to go to HBCU. I went to an all black high school. Well, historically black doesn't mean exclusively black. You have people from all over the world, and you have other black students from literally every state you can imagine at these HBCUs. So it really is a very diverse atmosphere that
Yeah.
really does a lot for their students. And I know Morgan State does a great job of that here. Jackson State, Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley, and we
Mhm.
actually have two private HBCUs, Tougaloo and Rusk College, as well as two HBCU community colleges here in Mississippi. So really encourage everyone to look into what HBCUs have to offer. Now, you moved to Charlotte because you saw they had food trucks, no food truck business because you opened Wingzza food truck, which was pizza and wings. Good, which you were like everybody likes that, so why not sell it? So just tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about how Wingzza was born and how you wound up in Charlotte after so many years in the DMV.
Yeah, yeah. So my wife actually works in the banking industry, and she was working with BB&T at the time, which is now Truist. And she came to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for a program, but their headquarters is in Charlotte. So we were dating, and I was in Maryland at the time. I was thinking about relocating, with my marketing career, and then looking at where there may be opportunities to own a home, maybe start a business where I would have some breathing room. DC was really expensive to live in that area. So I was looking at Charlotte, I was looking at Atlanta, I was looking at a few places, and I visited Charlotte, and I just fell in love with the city. So when I came here, I started home shopping, and I found a place. So I was able to buy my first house right here in Charlotte. It was affordable for me with the money I was making at the time. And it was, a great opportunity to live in my own home and save money while I thought about the type of business I wanted to open. So I was in the I got into the food business because that's always just been a love for me. I love pizza and wings. Believe it or not, when I was formulating the concept for the Wingzza food truck back in 2008, 2009, believe it or not, y'all, pizza and wings weren't something that everybody associated to go together, right? Like you had a couple of national chains that were offering wings with their pizza, but most pizza places did not have wings, and most wing places didn't have pizza. So my goal was to like have really,
Wow.
really good pizza and wings in the same place. So at that time, my first business name was Holy Matrimony Wings and Pizza, like where they were a match made, they were a match made in heaven. But Wingzza was kind of the thing that we used for our tags on our truck, and a lot of little cool stuff we were doing just to kind of shorten what we were selling. And I had a truck fire with that first truck. And when I came back with it is when I put Wingzza branding on everything. Like I'm just gonna do
Wow.
it this way. Yeah. So I just, for me, I felt like I wanted to open a restaurant. So remember, we're talking about 2008-ish, 2009 when I started getting ready to do this. I wanted to open a restaurant. I wanted to do a pizza and wing place, and I found out pretty quickly I didn't have the money to do that. So I prayed about it a lot, and in the meantime, I was signed up to a trade magazine called Pizza Today. Now, Pizza Today is like an industry magazine for pizza where they tell you where to get the best flour, cheese, sauce, and I was just trying to make good pizza at home. And then same with wings, just getting myself involved as much into industry knowledge as I could. Subscribing to that magazine, one time I flipped to the back of it and there was a company called Pizza Trucks of Canada that was like putting pizza trucks together. Now again, food trucks hadn't really taken off in the American consciousness yet. It was a very new kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Maybe we could do a pizza and wing truck. And I approached them and kind of got an idea. I still couldn't afford that. So I decided maybe I can build my own truck. So I found a truck. I think I paid $3,800 for my first truck. Um,
Wow.
I took about a year and a half adding piece by piece. So electrical, propane, everything I would need. And then I finally got my equipment in there. That's the same truck that caught on fire later. But that's the one we were on Cooking Channel, a show called Pizza Outside the Box.
Yeah.
They visited us. That was my original truck. And about a week after that, it caught on fire just coming home from lunch service. And I decided to keep going. So I rebuilt the truck, and here we are today. So, I mean, food business is a really cool business, but it's a tough business. It's not an easy business.
Yeah.
And our Mambo sauce was the Big Mac on our menu, really.
Yeah, and we'll get to the Mambo sauce,
Mhm.
obviously. But I think it's important because I hear so many people say, "Oh, I like to cook. I should open a restaurant." And
Yeah,
there are so, I mean, and I've got 11 years of restaurant industry. Most of
yeah.
that been part time, but I don't think people understand the startup and overhead cost of a restaurant. It is literally down to a science on how you have to manage the money side of a restaurant because you can be a spectacular cook.
Hmm.
You can have the best food on the planet. You can have something that everybody likes, but it is very hard to stay in business. So, what are
It
some
is.
things that somebody that wants to get into restaurant or food service or even the bar industry really have to pay attention to if they want to stay profitable?
Yeah, so I would say margins on what you're selling are the biggest thing, right? So we were selling pizza and chicken wings back in the day. The margins on chicken wings aren't great. And margin is just the difference between what it costs you to make it and how much you sell it for. You want to look for high margin items, high margin opportunities, where you can make a whole lot, maybe five, six, seven times what you pay for something, because all the rest of that money will go to paying the bills, paying your staff. Also keeping um, cost of employment, so your staff costs down, I would say is a big one too. A lot of times payroll is the biggest thing that restaurant owners suffer from. You have to pay people to work there. So that's why you see a lot of family businesses are the ones that have been around for 40, 50, 60 years because, everyone's invested in it and they're working for a piece of the pie as opposed to just coming to get a paycheck. I would say those two things are cool. And then, a lot of people have seen success with like working in non-traditional locations, off hours. You might see restaurants that are only open Thursday to Sunday, or, they're in a
Yeah.
cool little spot, or food trucks, catering, things like that, where you have a little bit more control over your costs. I think that's the biggest thing. And then staying motivated. So you mentioned like people love to cook. I'll be honest, the restaurant business sometimes may make you not enjoy cooking anymore. So I tell people, because I love cooking, food has always been my passion. I tell folks, imagine the biggest meal that you've ever cooked. Maybe that's a Thanksgiving dinner or a Christmas dinner, or you just had a bunch of friends and family over for a dinner party or a big meal. You went shopping, you cooked everything, everyone enjoyed it. When they left, you had to clean up all the dishes, all the kitchen, the biggest meal you've ever cooked, and how tired you were, how you felt, and then you got to do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So if you're thinking about getting into it, takes more than just loving food and loving to cook. You have to be motivated to succeed because it'll take a lot out of you.
Yeah, and along the same lines, and I'm glad we're down this rabbit hole right now because we're doing a project right now in class about pricing. Because
Mhm.
pricing is the ultimate psychological game when it comes to any type of entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So when it comes to setting a price, what are some things that you have to look at to get out of that mindset? Oh, that costs too much. Because a lot of times people get into the 16, 17-year-old mindset
Mhm.
and they don't think about what their market is doing. So, what are some good ways to look at how to make your price?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people are talking about AI now and the power of using, Chat GPT. I would say you could go on Chat GPT and type in, hey, what's the typical profit margin for pizza restaurants or sauce companies? Um, I would type that in and they can access that data and analysis to give you some information on what pricing should look like for your industry. Also, there is a train of thought that people will pay any price as long as they feel like they're getting their money's worth. If you feel like you're getting your money's worth, you can charge what the customer is willing to pay for it. But it's tough. So I would say also, and I'm just, my mind is racing as I'm talking. I would say unique products are another way that allow you to charge a proper margin when there's nothing else on the market that can compete with you. So I mentioned wings. We were in the wing business. um, Wing margins are tough. I couldn't charge $20 for maybe nowadays people are charging that, right? But like a 10-piece order of wings charging $20 back in my day, it wouldn't cut it because I wasn't just setting the price based on the needed margin. I was competing against Domino's and Pizza Hut and
Yeah,
Papa John's, or maybe the Chinese restaurant that's selling wings. Everybody is selling wings, so there's a lot of competition. So I think focusing on unique items that can't be replicated, um, that gives you a little bit more license to charge an appropriate price, but also not get much pushback. But if you say, hey, I sell great barbecue, you're competing with every other barbecue restaurant in town, and their pricing and their situation may not be the same as yours. They may have a different source. They may own a farm. They may have a friend in the pork business that can get them their products a little bit cheaper than what you have to pay for them. So it's tough. Pricing is the biggest thing that every entrepreneur struggles with.
absolutely. And that's the thing. We've had several students come through this class and they've started their own business, and I'll immediately tell them you're not charging enough.
Mhm.
Because they're working themselves ragged. And I'm like, look, I understand you don't want to seem like you're way too expensive, but at the same time, you got to make money.
Mhm.
Um, Now, you recently came up with a idea of Mambo sauce, and we watched a video about it, about what it is, and it's been something that has really taken off. And you are putting it in distributors all over Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, all over the place, in Georgia.
Yeah.
So, just tell us where this came from, and tell us exactly what this Mambo sauce is.
Sure, sure. So as you mentioned, I grew up in the DC area, the DMV, as most people call it. And for me growing up, Mambo sauce was like ketchup. It was as common as a ketchup or a hot sauce. Every chicken shack, wing joint, seafood restaurant, soul food restaurant, Asian carry out, you name it. If they had fried chicken or seafood, they had their own version of Mambo sauce. So everyone was always making their own. Even it was so regionally focused right there in the DC area that when I went to college in Baltimore, none of the places that I wanted to eat at had ever even heard of Mambo sauce. So that was the first time I realized like
Wow.
this isn't as common as one would think. So as I grew up and I got into my marketing career, I realized there was no Mambo sauce around the country. Fast forward, started my food truck. We had a full flavor menu, just like everybody has your buffalo, lemon pepper, garlic parm, teriyaki, whatever wings you want to serve. We were putting it on the wraps, the fried shrimp, even on the pizza. You can get any kind of drizzle you wanted. I just wanted to have a taste of home on the menu. So I put the Mambo sauce on there and it just took on a life of its own. So there were two groups of people. So people that were familiar with the DC area or were from that area were chasing us like crazy because they couldn't believe that we had Mambo sauce down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was like, wow, I haven't had this since I was in DC, like chasing us for the Mambo sauce. But then the light bulb went off when I realized that people in Charlotte had never heard of it, never had it, and they loved it. So it became synonymous with our food truck. And every food business needs a Big Mac. The thing that they're most known for. Ours
Yeah.
was the Mambo sauce. So we had long lines. People were chasing us, and we were the only one in town with Mambo sauce. We eventually started bottling it just to sell it from our food truck. So you could get 5 wings and fries on a bottle of Mambo sauce, a Mambo combo, or we started bottling it on our own, and then we started selling it. When we got onto the Food Network show, Food Court Wars, we were going to be on national TV. Then we put it online on our website so that folks across the country, because it was featured in the show, could order it and they could taste it. So that's when we started selling it, and we won the Food Network show. We got a store in Hickory, North Carolina, in the mall, and we started selling it from there. So the Mambo sauce is, just a small part of our business, but the energy was there. The momentum was there. People loved the Mambo sauce. And we got approached by the airport here in Charlotte. It was a concessions company that owned all the restaurants in Concourse A. So the bar and grill, the gift shop, they owned a Bojangles and a Wendy's. There was like lots of restaurants. And they said, we love that Mambo sauce. We would love to put it in the tap room for our wings, for our onion rings, our chicken sandwiches. And that is when I first sold it into food service. I was making it myself in these jugs and selling it to that airport group. And that's when the light bulb went off and I started selling it to other restaurants. So I just started knocking on doors and saying, hey, I'm Larry. You may have heard of the Wingzza food truck. This was our famous sauce. We're selling it now. You can add it to your wing menu. So the goal has been to make it the new staple in the wing business. If you notice, most wing restaurants, all have the same flavors. Mango habanero, with garlic parm, whatever it may be, barbecue, buffalo. We just want them to add Mambo to the menu. So that's been my mission, to continue to push Mambo sauce getting added to flavor menus. And that has grown into opportunities because it did catch on a bit. And that's how we ended up in the US Foods chef stores. So they have 11 locations here on the East Coast. They're really big, like Restaurant Depot, restaurant stores. So restaurants can go in there. We have access to thousands of restaurants now that see our product on the shelf and can buy it and add it to the menu easily and with authenticity. So Mambo sauce is, because it is a regional thing, it has to be authentic, it has to be the real thing, and we try to put that out there in our marketing and our messaging, that it is the real thing. It's authentic back home flavor from the DMV. And now, US Food Chef Store, we just got into 534 Food Lion stores across North Carolina. uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So it's growing pretty quickly, and I just try to stay where the momentum is. People love the sauce, so I'm selling the sauce.
Love it. Now, before I get to the students' questions, you mentioned something I really want to talk about
Hmm.
because, and I know all the other teachers that'll see this later I can speak for them on this because every month we do presentations about other entrepreneurs where the students get up and present and talk about these business ideas. Now, it's not something to be make people scared or nervous, but I'm trying to show the importance of being able to speak, being able to sell, being able to articulate. Because if you're going to be in any type of business, you've got to be confident speaking about the business. So how
Yeah.
important is that to learn these skills now in high school? Because no matter what type of business you go in, you're going to have to learn how to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Public speaking, the ability to sell are huge. They've been a huge benefit to our business. When we go in, I mean, I have to sell people on this. Most people, 99% of the folks I talk to have never heard of Mambo Sauce. They never heard of my food truck. They don't know who the heck I am. But I'm able to go in and tell them the history of the sauce, who I am, how the sauce came about, and what we've done so far, right? So you have to incrementally find some wins that you can then tell the next person about. But yeah, I think, being able to sell your product in an elevator pitch, give them a quick 30-second overview of what it is and what it's for. You got to be able to do that. And you can't be, we life is a short thing, right? And if you really want to get out there and go after it, you got to be telling everybody about your product, everybody about your business. You can't be shy, because they're not just going to find you. So that's what I try to do, and I struggle with that every day. There's times I don't want to network, or I just, if I'm going to an event, I may just want to observe and listen, but then something kicks in and says, well, hey, wear your Mambo Sauce hat. Maybe someone will ask you about it, maybe they won't. You introduce yourself, always put that first, always be selling. So it's valuable. And it's hard to understand that when you're in school, when you're developing, but the people that have been successful, no matter what the industry is, they've learned how to tell their story and sell their product.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some questions from the students.
Sure.
I like this first one. This is Tyler Myers. He's in 10th grade, one of our football players here. And he asked, I've never heard of Mambo sauce. So what exactly is it and what are the ingredients?
Sure, sure. So it is a tomato-based product, right? But it's a sweet, sticky red sauce. It's a little tangy. It has a little kick. So I always tell people it's not a barbecue sauce, it's not a hot sauce, it's not a ketchup. It's a little bit of everything you love about each sauce in one bottle. So it goes
Wow.
great on anything fried, chicken, seafood, French fries, appetizers, like, egg rolls, beef patties, anything crispy and salty. You can put mambo sauce on potato chips, popcorn, but it's like in that family, but it's its own category, so a little bit of everything in one bottle. You got to taste it to understand. So I try to sell it by getting out in front of people and letting them taste it.
That's awesome. This is Shavaka Page. He's also in 10th grade. And he asked, did you get your famous sauce the way you have it now on your first try?
No, no. It has evolved a bit over time, right? So, um, it took a lot of trial and error because, again, where I grew up, everyone had their own version. Some people's were a little sweeter, some were spicier, some were smoky. I tried to identify what I liked about those and hone that recipe in that way. Let folks try it. I always say, when you're testing recipes, let your family try it without telling them it's something you're doing and you want them to taste. Because of course your friends and family will say, "Oh, that tastes good," or sometimes they'll tell you it's crappy. But I just try to sneak it on wings, sneak it on food in the house, and get a real natural reaction. But it took a lot of time. On the food truck, it was different than when we started bottling it because some things had to change once you start getting into mass production and thinking about shelf life and different things. But it's an evolution, honestly. It's like your grandma's mac and cheese. It took her how many years to get that recipe right. And when you first tried to make it, even though you had the recipe, it didn't quite taste like hers. You got to work on it.
Big time. I got one more. This is Herbert Carmichael. He's also in 10th grade. And he asked, after your truck burned, did you feel like giving up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought about just going back to work. Thankfully, I had insurance. That was important. I thought about taking the money that I'd invested in the truck and just going back to work and starting over. But a funny thing happened while I was on hiatus from the truck being burned and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. That cooking channel show aired. So that aired during that time when I didn't even have a truck. And it was such an outpouring of the community at that time, and there was so much energy around it that it was like, I got to bring it back. But something in my gut always told me just to keep going, go back. At that time, I had no clue I would be in the sauce business, so I'm thankful that I did go back. But yep, always there's been many times, food truck, restaurant, sauce, that I've thought about doing something else or giving up. But I just try to put one foot in front of the other.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But just a couple things before we go. First of all, tell everybody where they can find the Wingzza Mambo Sauce online and order their own bottle.
Yeah, so wingzza.com, wingzza.com. You can get a 2-pack of bottles. You can get a 4-pack of bottles on there. You can also get it by the gallon or 2-gallon pack. We also ship nationwide to restaurants. So if you know anybody that has a restaurant that wants to try it out on the menu, have them head to the website and get it. But yeah, wingzza.com, wingzza.com.
Oh man, and yeah, and we've already looked at it, and I think we're going to have some people order it. I know I'm going to get me some at some point as well. But the last thing before we go, I have all young men in here with me today,
Mhm.
and and we talk about this all the time, and I know they get so sick of me talking about it, but it can never be overstated or overanalyzed. Why do we need more successful Black leaders in our community, Black male leaders in our community?
I think we have to have as many as possible because we are the examples, right? We are the folks that people do what they see, and what they see is what they believe is possible. So if we don't show an example of entrepreneurs, doctors, lawyers, politicians, whatever it may be, that are in leadership roles, then what will the children have to look forward to or look up to? If you don't do it, there's plenty of bad influences that they can look to as well, and on in mass that helps destroy our community. So it pays dividends to be a leader, to be someone that is doing positive things in the world, because that impacts us at a much greater level long term when people see that it's possible and they believe it's possible.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but this was still
Yeah,
great
no problem.
stuff. And we thank you so much for joining us, Larry Swayne, all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, founder of Wingzza Mambo Sauce. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and anytime you need me, I'll be here.
All right. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, great. Thank you.